Hello, beloved. Welcome to our channel, where we grow closer to Jesus every day. If you love learning how to strengthen your faith and deepen your prayer life, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a blessing.
Hey everyone, today we're jumping right into one of the most powerful testimonies you'll find anywhere in Scripture, the book of Daniel. I mean, this is just an incredible account of unwavering faith and God's absolute sovereignty. And get this, it was written while Israel was in exile, basically held captive right in the heart of the mighty Babylonian Empire.
You know, that whole situation really brings up a huge question, one that feels just as relevant today as it was back then. How does your faith survive, let alone thrive, when you're surrounded by a world, a culture that's completely hostile to it? That right there, that's the central conflict we're going to unpack by looking at Daniel's amazing story.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with Daniel's exile and his first big test. Then we'll get into those legendary tales of courage. After that, we'll shift gears to his incredible visions of empires, look at God's divine timetable, and wrap it all up with Daniel's enduring legacy.
Okay, first up, exile and a test. So, picture this. The year is around 605 BC. Jerusalem has fallen, and a young man, Daniel, is captured and dragged into exile in Babylon. His new life? Serving in the court of the most powerful king on earth, Nebuchadnezzar. He is a long, long way from home and completely surrounded by foreign gods.
And boom, right away his faith gets put to the test. He's offered the king's own rich food and wine. Now, accepting it would have been the easy thing to do, a way to just assimilate. But for Daniel, this was a huge problem. You see, this food was almost certainly prepared against God's laws, and it was probably offered to Babylonian idols first. So what does he do? He refuses. And this decision, which might seem kind of small, is absolutely crucial. It literally sets the stage for every single courageous act that comes later. His faithfulness here in this small thing is what prepared him for the really big thing.
And boy, did those big things come quickly. Let's dive into our next section, Tales of Courage. This is where we see how that initial stand builds into some of the most iconic stories about faith under just extreme pressure. I mean, Daniel and his friends are about to face some seriously escalating tests of their integrity.
So King Nebuchadnezzar, in what you can only call an act of supreme pride, builds this massive golden statue. And then he issues an absolute decree. Everyone, and he means everyone, in the entire kingdom must bow down and worship it. The alternative? You get thrown into a blazing furnace. Yeah, the choice could not be more stark. Bow or burn.
So this is it, the moment of truth for Daniel's friends. You know them, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And their response? Wow, it is one of the most powerful, gut-punch statements of faith ever recorded. They basically say, our God is powerful enough to save us, but even if he doesn't, we're still not bowing. Think about that. Their obedience wasn't conditional. It wasn't a transaction. Their faith was absolute no matter the outcome. And you see this pattern, this incredible, courageous faith being met with a miraculous rescue, play out in two of the most famous stories, period. First, in that fiery furnace, a fourth figure, one that looks like a son of the gods, shows up in the flames with them, and they walk out completely unharmed. Then later on, it's Daniel's turn. He gets thrown into a den of lions just for praying to God. And what happens? An angel literally shuts the lions' mouths. So in both cases, their faith was tested by fire and by fang, and both times God showed up and proved faithful. All right, now we get to the third part, Visions of Empires. So the first half of the book is all about showing God's power to save individuals, right? But now the book makes this huge dramatic pivot. We're zooming out. We shift from these personal historical stories to this series of massive, cosmic visions that reveal God's control over the rise and fall of entire world empires. It all kicks off with a dream that King Nebuchadnezzar has about this giant statue. Daniel's the one who interprets it, and he reveals it represents a whole succession of world empires. You've got the head of gold, that's Babylon, then a chest of silver for Medo-Persia. The belly of bronze is Greece, and the legs of iron and clay represent Rome. But then, here's the kicker, a stone, one that wasn't cut by human hands, comes flying in, smashes the whole statue to pieces, and then grows into a massive mountain that fills the entire earth. It's such a brilliant picture of the book's main message. Human empires, they're all temporary. But God's kingdom, that's the one that's eternal and will triumph over everything. And then, as if to reinforce the point, Daniel has his own parallel vision. Only this time, the empires aren't a shiny statue,
They're shown as four terrifying beasts: a lion with eagle's wings, a bear, a four-winged leopard, and then this final beast that's so terrible it's just indescribable. So the imagery is totally different, right? But the message is 100% the same. God, who's called the Ancient of Days, is the one on the throne. He's the one in judgment, and he's the one who gives all power and dominion to a figure like a son of man whose kingdom will never, ever end.
Now for our fourth section, we're looking at God's divine timetable. And here's the thing, these visions, they aren't just vague, broad strokes about the future. No. The book gets incredibly specific, revealing that history isn't just a random series of events. It's actually unfolding according to a very precise, preordained plan.
And this all really comes to a head in chapter 9 with what's known as the 70 weeks prophecy. This thing is one of the most detailed and frankly debated timelines in the entire Bible. The angel Gabriel gives it to Daniel, and it lays out this 490-year timeline that points directly to the coming of the Messiah, to his suffering, and it even sketches out future end-time events. It is just a powerful, powerful declaration that God's plan for redemption is exact, and it is right on schedule.
Okay, finally, let's talk about Daniel's enduring legacy. So what do we take away from all of this? When you put it all together, the stories of incredible personal faith, right alongside these epic prophecies about empires, the legacy of this book becomes crystal clear. It is a profound, unshakable call to courage.
So let's just quickly run through the major themes you see again and again in this book. First, there's that unwavering faith in a hostile culture. Then there's the huge danger of human pride. We see the certainty of God's judgment, the incredible power of persistent prayer, and then, maybe the biggest one of all, God's absolute total sovereignty over all of human history.
And if you had to boil the entire book down to one central message, this is it. It echoes from every single chapter. Human empires rise and they fall. Kingdoms, governments, cultures, they will come and they will go. They might look all-powerful for a season, but in the end, they are all temporary. God's kingdom is the only one that lasts forever, and it will ultimately prevail over everything else.
Which really leaves us with one last thing to think about. Daniel lived in a time of insane upheaval and uncertainty. Sound familiar? Yet through it all, he had this solid, unshakable hope. So as we look at our own world with all of its chaos and questions, the book of Daniel kind of holds up a mirror and asks us to consider what is the ultimate foundation of our hope for the future.
Thank you for watching. If you or someone you know needs prayer, send us an email. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for daily blessings.